For all the widespread positivity there was towards INEOS in the first 3 months of them completing a part takeover of Manchester United, there's been a lot of bad since. And what I want to do in this video is try my absolute best to explain everything, all right? Because I think to try and say that INEOS are just another Glazers is just flat out wrong. However, the way that they are approaching being partners of Manchester United is also flat out wrong. And both of these things can be correct at the same time. And it really annoys me when United fans try and separate conversations like this into a definitive one here or there. It's both. And also, before I even start any of this video, remember that all of this, absolutely all of it, is a direct consequence of what the Glazers did when they pillaged everything out of our football club for nearly 2 decades. Everything that is happening now, it is a direct consequence of the shit that they left. However, it does not mean I think everything is justified with what Ratcliffe and INEOS are doing. Now, if I want to take a step back from this and I try to say, well, what did INEOS get right? I thought there was a lot that they got right in those first 3 months. And I've listed some down here, all right? The way that they were front-facing when they came in at United. We've gone from the Glazers who existed in the shadows and never publicly met fans or staff or anybody or showed any ambition. INEOS, Ratcliffe, Brailsford, they all did that at the very beginning. In the first 3 months, it was a big shift and a big change. Maybe it was just the fact that it wasn't the Glazers. Sure. But you can see down here, Ratcliffe putting in $300 million of his own money. The Glazers have never put a penny into our club. So do not compare the two. Well, I think it's unfair to compare the two. And there's other things I've written down there. However, what is being correctly spoken about now are all these cuts. Now, I've tried to make this an exhaustive list, but I may well have forgotten some. And here's the thing. Some of these I agree with. Some of them I don't. Right? I think United's staff force was bloated. I've spoken with people who worked at United and they admitted that from themselves. But at the same time, there are going to be good people there that have lost their jobs. So again, even with the redundancies, as much as I agree with it, it's not a one-size-fits-all. When it comes to the changes that are required at our club, because of how poor our finances are, cuts are needed. There's 2 ways to make a business more profitable, if you want to call it that, more efficient. Number 1, increase how much money you got coming in. Number 2, decrease how much money you got going out. United need to get better on the pitch, and that's ultimately where the focus is and needs to be. But this was outrageous. To start off with all the communication that they had at the beginning and then increase the ticket price for all members, cutting the kids and OAP concessions without consultation was ridiculous. Cutting the FA Cup final staff reward. End of the season. I don't know. Anyway, I completely agree with that. Cancelling the Christmas party. That's going to affect morale, but I can understand that. Cutting the stewards' bonuses is going to affect morale, but I can understand that. I agree with the chauffeur cars getting cancelled, the credit cards getting cancelled, and I even agree with Fergie being removed from the ambassadorial role. I think largely a lot of people did. And even David Gill as well. I believe that was sort of amicable handshake, and everyone sort of agreed on that. This one here, these 2 here at the bottom are the ones that are the freshest in the memory. And very fucking questionable, if you ask me. Right? Jim Ratcliffe and the idea of putting Manchester back into Manchester United. And now INEOS are going to be cutting benefits to the Manchester United Foundation, the club's charitable arm. And also that £40,000 a year cut to a former players' charity, which was set up to, I think they do like 3-4 events a year where they bring former players together. And presumably it's to help those players who may have problems, may have financial troubles or anything like that, or even just coming together. I don't quite know. so many of these changes here have a distinctly non-empathetic business mind behind it, which is what Jim Ratcliffe is, which is what INEOS are. And it works when you're a billion-pound, multi-everything, global petrochemicals company. You don't need to have the empathy because you don't really have a community. It's a cold business. And cuts like this, in that environment, wouldn't impact INEOS in the same way that it's going to impact Manchester United. And there are fans now that are, look, ticket prices are going up. Fans are going to start having to pay more for the privilege of watching United be shit and have done for so long. You've now got charitable cuts that are happening. You've got parts of the club as a community being affected by these cuts in the same way that you're now sitting there looking at players earning 300 grand. Honest opinion, more of this is coming. I don't know what, but more will come. And also, second part of this honest opinion, I think fans will be less angry about stuff like this if United weren't 14th. I think they'd be less angry with stuff like this if United shift Rashford on, if United shift Casemiro on, if United actually start being genuinely ruthless with the players, because the optics of what's the fucking point in cutting a £40,000 a year donation to a former players' charity? Now, you could talk about marginal gains if you want, which is ultimately what this is. It's the definition of it, really. But is that really worth the damage that that would do? And you start piling these on top of each other, cutting the MU Foundation funding. Don't think it'll be completely, but cutting part of the funding to the foundation, cutting the charity stuff. They're all going to pile up. And as I said, with United being 14th right now, this cold, analytical, numbers-only approach works for INEOS and has worked for INEOS in the petrochemicals industry. But that same exact logic applied to a club which it's so much more than a football club to so many millions of people. Local, around the globe, the communities that exist like United People's TV. Our community exists off the back of Manchester United. And there are hundreds of supporters clubs, thousands living locally. And I think INEOS did plenty of good in that first 3 months. But I also do not think that the road that they are going down with this non-empathetic approach will serve them well in the long term when it comes to having support from fans. I would never go as far as to say that INEOS are another set of Glazers, because they're just not. All of this is a consequence of our club being run into the mud. I want to know your opinion on it, because I think it's one that... I don't think it's one that divides fans, but I think it's one that a lot of fans now, it doesn't really matter what they did before that might have been good, because look what they're fucking doing now. And I think that's how a lot of United fans are kind of looking at INEOS. And I'd be interested to know what you think in the comments.